According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the term budgie smugglers is Australian slang for men's close-fitting swimming trunks. It's also an iconic Australian brand, slowly but surely being built by today's guest and chief smuggler, as he calls himself, Adam Linforth. It's an eye-popping episode 525 of the 11-year-old award-winning Small Business Big Marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Tim Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of in-your-face marketing. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner, and you are so ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. Big episode today. We find out why Budgy Smugglers owner Adam Linforth is in no rush to build an iconic Australian brand. This week's Monster Prize Draw winner lost it all and now finds himself back at the foot of the mountain and raring to go. Love that story. Plus, I let you in on next week's New York-based guest who, in his own words, has killed Zoom. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in.
Hey Timbo, it's Chris Sullivan here from your local tyre shop with a bit of info about how I have used the Small Business Big Marketing podcast in my business. The best marketing idea that I've found on one of your podcasts was from Steve Sims. He had the idea of sending a customer a letter or a snippet out of a magazine or even a postcard after a sale. So we do this currently around about 2 or 3 weeks later after one of our sales of tyres to our customers. We'll send them a postcard with a bit of a thank you and also noting down something that we remember about them. So I thank you immensely. Best of luck for the future, mate.
Hey, thank you so much, Chris, mate. You are a long-time listener. I know you love the show. I know you love implementing ideas from it. And for that, I am eternally grateful. And well done to you for getting the results. You deserve them. Everyone else, give me a buzz. 0480 015 150. And tell me a marketing idea that's working for you. Give me some feedback on my podcast. Maybe you just want to share something with me or ask me a question. I'd love to hear from you. 0480 015 150. Now, if you're a long-time listener, you know that I love everything about ocean swimming. Most days pulling on the Speedos and swimming 2 or 3K off Noosa's beautiful main beach with a bunch of mates. It's not a pretty sight, but geez, we love it. So when I had the opportunity to interview Adam Linforth, the owner of Budgy Smugglers, I jumped at it. Between you and I, it's a brand I'd love to own. Adam bought the business back in 2008 when it was selling 1,000 pairs a year. Today, well over 100,000 pairs of Budgy Smugglers are sold around the world, plus he's added a women's and a kids range. Now, there's a lot to love about the Budgy Smugglers brand and the way Adam's growing it, but I also think he's leaving a fair bit of dough on the table. You may sense my frustration during this chat, so I'll share with you what I think he could be doing better after the interview. I started off by asking Adam how he came to owning this legendary Australian brand.
It was all a bit of a sort of happy accident. So the actual company Budgy Smuggler had been around for a few years before I came along, and I was on a beach in Mexico one day and I saw a couple of blokes wearing a pair of sort of fluoro-ish Speedos with just the words Budgy Smuggler on the back, got talking to them. I had a bit of a background in surf lifesaving and that sort of thing and was pretty comfortable in a pair of Speedo-style swimwear. We had a yarn, and then when I got back to Australia, hit him up, started helping out, running the odd errand for them, and then a couple of years after that ended up sort of owning the business, which at that stage there was a website set up, and I think they were doing maybe under 1,000 pairs a year sort of thing. So it was in its infancy, but that was how it all began in 2008 for me.
What was your attraction? You're a bit of a surf lifesaver, and the Speedos weren't doing it for you, but what was the particular, was it just the name?
Yeah, I love the name, and I'd been on a tour through Europe just before with this bloke from Canada, Eric Nordgren, and we were doing like a boat trip, and he said to me that he's got this sort of weird tradition that him and his friends do when they go on holidays, and would I like to be a part of it? I said, what is it? And he's like, we get in.
You ask nervously.
We get into a pair of the most offensive looking Speedo-style swimwear that we can find, and we get a outrageous hat, like, an Akubra or a Mexican hat, or I went with a little sort of Irish Peaky Blinders number, and that's all we wear for the whole trip. And so we did that around like Croatia and that. This was like maybe 2006, and it just got a really good reaction. And so then when I saw Budgy Smuggler come along and there was a name with it, I was like, oh, this could be a goer.
Were you looking to buy a business, Adam, or was it just something that, opportunistic?
Yeah, so I'd done a kind of traditional pathway in terms of I went to uni, did an arts and commerce degree, and started work at a bank. And pretty quickly on, I realised, this is not for me. And so I was looking around to just do something else, and buying or starting a business was one of them. And so Budgy Smuggler popped up along that time, and it took about close to 12 months before it sort of the sale, I guess, happened. The original owner or main owner was a bloke, Lockie Harris, who was actually Kevin Rudd's press secretary.
Of course he was.
And
sure it wasn't Tony Abbott's press secretary.
No. Came up with like Kevin 07 and that sort of thing. So, yeah, so Lockie, once they won in 2007...
he's like, mate, I'm out of here.
pretty much. So the actual day that it happened, he just kind of called me and was like, mate, I need to fly out to, I think, New York with the Prime Minister, and his cousin, Dave, who'd been running it for him, was wanting to do some other things as well. So it kind of... The stock literally turned up later that afternoon, and with the password to the website, and it's like, we'll sort out the paperwork when I'm back, which was, a couple of weeks later.
Mate, that's awesome.
So there wasn't like a SWOT analysis or any deep business planning. It was just a bit of gut feel, and also knowing the certitude that working for a big company wasn't something that I wanted to do. So let's take a punt on something else.
And thank you for using the word certitude, Adam. It hasn't been used on 525 episodes of this podcast. And
there's a bloke, Sam Perry, who is on the Grey Cricketer podcast, and he used that word with me yesterday, and I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
So it's printed in my brain.
It's impressive, mate. I'm just going to rewrite some of these questions to sound a little bit smarter than I currently do. And I'm going to try and build certitude into the balance of the interview. Tell me, a cheeky question. Do you mind if I ask what you paid for it?
Oh, I won't give away the exact figure, but like it was a couple of years' salary for a graduate at a bank at the time.
Right, so about 22 grand. Tell me, you went and borrowed from your parents. Describe that conversation. Mum and Dad want to buy a company called Budgy Smugglers. What are Budgy Smugglers, son?
Sure. So I'd saved up I had about a quarter of the money good to go, and I needed the other 3/4. I was working at a bank in business lending, so I knew that from the financials that they wouldn't lend to me because, it was turning over. I think I paid sort of double what it was turning over, and the business was losing money. So like on paper, this is not a deal at all. And my dad had the same sort of view, that he thought it was a bit crazy, but it was actually my mum. Mum's from Poland originally, and she just thinks the name Budgy Smugglers hilarious. So she was like, we'll back you. I thought I'd be able to pay him back within a year or two, but it took about 8 years. The business was sort of growing. We needed money to fund it, so I just kind of had that debt hanging around for a long time. But fortunately now we've got to the point where we're in the clear.
I think it's really interesting. That was is it 2006 or 2008?
2008.
So you didn't go full time in the Budgy Smuggler business until 2016. So you had 8 years you've gone and dropped, I'm going to say 100 grand on buying an unproven business with a funky name that your mum loves.
Yeah, this is not painting too good a picture, is it? Oh, my mum likes it.
Mate, I love it. I'm one of these business/marketing guys who operates from the gut. I've had many guests who operate from the head and, all this kind of stuff. You're in my camp. I love it. I too would have seen the upside of a brand called, just on the name alone.
Yeah.
But why did you take that long to get into the business? Because again, I'm going to guess that when you went full-time in the Budgy Smuggler business, things probably took off.
Yeah, we've kind of almost every year since inception had growth between 30 and 70%, including this year, so it's
wow.
It's always been within that range. We've never had like a Justin Bieber moment or something where he wears it and then it just goes out of control. The best years have been at that 70% end. The worst years have been at the sort of 30% end. But what kind of sidetracked me, I guess, was I started, one of my mates at uni, Aboriginal bloke called Jack Manning Bancroft, started a mentoring program for Indigenous high school kids. And then I ended up becoming the finance director, inverted commas, for that. But there was only like 2 staff there. But within like 4 or 5 months, there was 10 staff. And he asked me to come across full-time on that. Well, it was originally sort of 4 days per week. And then I got kind of heavily focused on that for the next 6-7 years. So I was travelling around Australia, building partnerships with universities, government, corporate groups.
But are you that incredibly passionate about, and what an awesome project, mentoring Aboriginal kids? Are you that passionate that despite the fact that you've got a debt over here to mum and dad and a business that probably is screaming for some full-time love from its owner, you just couldn't go there?
Yeah, I kind of had a long-term view. Like I was young, 23 or something like that. And so I also had some challenges with Budgy Smuggler in terms of like no one was actually wearing Budgy Smugglers at that time. So for the business to reach any sort of scale, we had to kind of change the perception of what a Budgy Smuggler wearer was, that it wasn't this sort of ripped up, oiled Adonis or old sort of bloke sitting at the park with the leathery kind of skin. We had to we had to rebuild that definition. So I knew that was going to take a long time. Like board shorts were past the knees at this point, if you remember back in time not that long ago. So I knew that was going to take a bit of time. So I just kind of buckled into that kind of, if we can get 50% year-on-year growth, then I knew that in 5 years we'd be 10 times as big. And in 10 years, we'd be 100 times as big.
Jeez, man. Love a bit of business confidence.
Yeah, but if you've got a 10-year horizon, it's okay. And then because I had an income coming in from AIM, which was the mentoring program, I didn't have to rely on making maybe the shortcuts to growth at that point in time that were available to me. So we've always made our stock in Australia. Every week for the past 12 years, someone hit me up, why are you making in Australia? Make it overseas for cheaper. But for me, it was very important that when you put on a pair of Budgy Smugglers that you feel something, that it is a part of Australia, that it's crafted here. And that was kind of a unique part of the brand. So
how much money do you reckon you're leaving on the table by... Well, what's the opportunity cost of not having Budgy Smugglers manufactured in China? And what's the value... Can you quantify this, of having them made in Australia and people feeling that?
There's 2 times to answer your question, I guess. If you look back 10 years ago, they were really expensive to make here, and our volumes were relatively low, but you're talking at like over $20 a pair when you could be getting it for, closer to $5, $6, $7 in China.
Wow.
But you have to order 1,000 per colour in China or wherever overseas you're getting it made, Bali, places like that. So that has its own difficulty. But the bonus of that is that then options like retailing at City Beach, Surfection, David Jones, places like that are all on the table. By making in Australia, all those options were off the table because the cost of production was too high. We actually were the top selling item in Surfection for a while, but we were making like $2 a unit, and so I was selling 3,000 units. I'm making $5,000. I'm like, I can sell 300 online and make nearly as much.
What government support do you get?
So none until
COVID.
4 years ago. Well, we took advantage of a thing called the Export Market Development Grant. So this is a really good one for businesses that are looking to grow overseas, and I think they're looking to accelerate and make this even better now. Historically, you had to spend the money, submit your thing, and then like 9 months later, you'd get reimbursed for 50% of your costs.
It was quite a process.
Yeah, where they're a lot quicker with it now, encouraging Australian businesses to grow overseas. So that's been the main one we've taken advantage of. But with the manufacturing, the costs in Australia have actually come down quite a lot with kind of, inverted commas, advanced manufacturing. So, in the olden days, we had to heat seal press all the logos and stuff onto the pairs. Now it's all digital sublimation printing, and then it goes into a laser cutter, which cuts it out. So it's only really the sewing where there's a gap. So that pricing, it's now about, let's say, 60, 70% more expensive to make in Australia. But like one of the secrets that not everyone knows about manufacturing overseas is about 1/3 of all goods that are mass produced are destroyed. They never make it to market. So if you take out like the third that you're not having to discount towards zero or literally destroy, you see Burberry handbags and places like that where
yes,
they literally just burn the kit. So when it's only 50, 60% more expensive and you can make in the volumes that you want, with the way manufacturing's going, I think, at the moment, we're probably one of the largest clothing manufacturers in Australia, but you'll see a lot more coming back because it's just got easier
right.
to do. And then there's other things. The Australian dollar at one point was like $1.10 US. Now it's back at 70 cents. So there's 50 cents, 50% more competitive making stuff in Australia is as well. So very happy that we've stuck it out here.
Well, it sounds to me, Adam, as though it gives you a sense of certitude.
100%.
I don't even know whether I use that word correctly, but we'll go with it. Mate, when did you realise that the word budgy in the brand name was spelt incorrectly? You're spelling it B-U-D-G-Y. Obviously, the correct spelling is B-U-D-G-I-E. When did you realise and when did you decide, well, it doesn't matter?
Oh, there's a couple of funny stories on the name, but yeah, it was early on, the guys who made them, you had to make a plate at this point in time to make the prints to put the logo or the word on the back. And they cost like a few $100 to set up. And then you need to make 500 or 1,000 at a time, which might be $2 each of the prints for it to be worthwhile. So they'd gone and set up the plate and then all the coloured prints and then made them and then realised the spelling of the word was wrong.
You had one job.
Yeah, one job. So they just decided to roll with it. So, it's kind of funny. We actually made the Oxford English Dictionary a few years ago, 2016, alongside the words glamping and wedding tackle. So
that's great.
We're big in England.
So the word budgie smuggler is in the English Oxford Dictionary. How do you find that out? Do you get a letter from the Queen or what's that?
It just popped up in the newspaper. I think the other one, so I was in the UK for the last 4 years, we set up a UK website and building Budgy Smuggler over there. But in 2018, so I'd only been there for 2 years, we got voted the most hated item of clothing in the UK ahead of turtlenecks and Crocs. So I was only there. I thought it was, if you're not first, you're last. It was quite an achievement to get there.
Yeah, that's right.
That quickly. But I actually like Crocs as well. So I don't know, maybe...
Yeah, I'm in two minds about Crocs. I don't mind the odd turtleneck, R.I.P. Steve Jobs, but the Crocs. I do have a pair of Croc deck shoes, which are very handy when I go yachting on my 100-foot trimaran, which I don't own or have or never will. Tell me, interesting, more than one person who I said I'm interviewing the owner of Budgy Smuggler today said to me, geez, I didn't realise Budgy Smuggler was an actual brand. I thought it was just a generic term for the category. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I guess it means we've got a long way to go to getting the word out there about smuggling. So it's probably got its pluses as well that, the term's used quite a lot. So it's in people's mind. And also when people go to search for it online, that's our main method of sales. They can just jump online, type in the word. It's easy to remember. It's implanted in the Australian psyche, I guess. So I think the name is a huge a huge benefit, but a long way to go before, the average man or all the people on the street sort of know we are a brand.
I totally agree with that, and I want to have. I think it's a very undermarketed brand. I want to touch on that later on. But I want to understand a bit more about the business first. Now, Budgy Smugglers, by virtue of the name, is a piece of men's clothing, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's where you smuggle your budgie, so to speak. You've got female budgie smugglers, which I feel, when I looked at your website and have seen the range, it feels like that's a bit like Victoria's Secret's having a men's lingerie brand, a men's lingerie range. What am I missing there? Why didn't you build out the men's side of Budgy Smugglers instead of going into women's and kids?
I would love to say it was my decision, but we basically, about 9 years ago, we held an event and all the blokes were running around in smugglers, and girls sort of came up to us and said, hey, we want something similar that has the same ethos. So, we've tried to build Budgy Smuggler around people you want to have beers with. And there wasn't really a female brand doing that. And so that was the kickoff of Smugglettes. It's actually about 25% of sales. It's growing pretty
Is it really?
Pretty quickly. In the UK, I think it's even a little bit higher than that. So, yeah, it's doing pretty well.
Interesting, because I look at it and I go, it is like I said, by virtue of the name, it is men's, but you've really got a huge amount of SKUs. You've got not only men's, ladies and kids, but within that you've got underwear, face masks, interesting, obvious pivot, I guess, one pieces, booty shorts, you've got rash vests, you've got socks, bum bags, stubby coolers. The list goes on and on. Have you got too many, it's not SKUs, too many different products in your range? And does the 80-20 rule apply?
Well, my brother does all the production for it, so he'd probably agree with you that keeping a track of manufacturing it all is a bit of a headache. The 80-20 rule almost applies. Yeah, with sort of 60% of sales, I guess, are just the core men's product, and there's only one cut. And we just changed that across about 100, I don't know, we've probably got maybe 400 different prints that you can get on it, sort of stock ready. Whereas women's, which is only 25% of the business, but we've got 3 or 4 different one pieces, 3 or 4 different bottoms, 3 or 4 different tops. Women's swimwear is a lot trickier, but it's very important for us that, when there's a family holiday, that mum, dad, kids, everyone can be repping in it.
It's a little bit weird when you see, I saw it on the beach actually just the weekend just gone, where dad and his 2 sons were in the same designed shorts. It's sort of like husband and wife wearing the same leisure suit and walking along the promenade. Isn't it a bit weird?
I love a family that smuggles together. It's one of the more heartwarming things when you see, 3 generations all kitted out in fluoro rubber duckies. It's literally... I love it, but...
others take offence. Us fashionistas take offence. Tell me, just on the design process, because you have, 400 different designs. I'm looking at your website right now. Everything from, you've got Bubble Mobile, which is obviously a tribute to Movember. You've got some licensed products, VB, Bundaberg, Victoria Bitter, Bundaberg Rum, and then you've just got design after design after design, pineapples and bananas and this and that. How does that happen? You got someone sitting there going, I think we should do a pina colada smuggler. We should do this or that. Do you just keep adding?
Yeah, so that's another one that area where we invest a fair bit of time and effort. So a lot of fashion sort of brands, I guess, will outsource their design and, chuck it on one of the open internet platforms to get people to do the design and rip it from that, whereas... we've got sort of a dozen full-time staff and 4 of them are designers.
Wow.
So that's a really key part of our business. And we sell about 1/3 of all our sales is custom swimwear for sports clubs, mainly for sports clubs, but also for bucks weekends, hens, teams travelling overseas. So that's a huge part of the business. And some of them will often come up with, the most creative and best ideas. And we'll often just say, hey, we love this design so much. Do you mind if we adjust it or repurpose it as a stock pair? So it's actually sort of...
Give us an example.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, well, some of the early pineapple ones, the Sailor Stripes, which were one of our best-selling pairs, just a classic stripe pair with an anchor on the front left to go with your Croc shoes. They were just someone saying, hey, you need that. Donuts, like I get people at the pub all the time just pestering me like, you need to do donuts, like the Simpsons kind of donuts. And then eventually we did it, and the bloke Giovanni, he was right. So Gio, shout outs to you. It was the Crispy Dreams are one of our best sellers for a long time, and they're still in the range.
Tell me, it's quite interesting. I mean, as personalising products is just a really cool thing, and as the technology becomes easier to do, I think we'll probably see more of that. That's incredible that 33% of the whole Budgy Smuggler business is custom design. I think that's fantastic. I can imagine that growing. Licensing, you have, it looks to me like you have proper license agreements with Victoria Bitter, big beer brand in Australia, and Bundaberg Rum. How does that work? Do you meet up with them and say, hey, listen, can we, pay you a fee to make smugglers from your brand? Or do they, is it a kind of mutually agreed partnership?
We had Bundaberg come along first. So someone from Bundy reached out to see if we could do a pair. It was around every 8th case or something that you bought, you'd win a pair. And then then people were like, where can we get these? We really want to buy them. So once the competition had ran its course, that became a licensing partnership. VB have been awesome to work with this year. They sort of wanted to do, I think with the sort of post-COVID, or not post-COVID, but during COVID, wanted to do something with an Australian brand rather than doing the kind of, cheap, made overseas kind of merchandise. Wanted to do something that was made in Australia with some sort of craftsmanship behind it. So they've been awesome. So, we worked out a range with them and released that recently, and it's one of our top-selling pairs. And then probably the other main license agreements we have are with the sort of sporting codes, so League, AFL, Rugby Union. And again, I think a lot of the players are wearing Budgy Smugglers when they play.
Or you just hope, dack him, please dack him.
Definitely in league and union, it's that they do make the odd appearance, and so it made sense if the players are wearing it to have a pair that's with the club colours, the national colours.
Absolutely. When you do a club, do you then send every single player a couple of pairs in the hope that the whole team's wearing them? Because someone always gets dacked, right? And that goes on national TV.
Yeah, occasionally. Like we sort of just like return the love. So when we notice that there's a player who's wearing them, we'll look after them and get some pairs to them to get to the other players in the team who are keen smugglers.
Let's talk about distribution, Adam. You have got a store in Manly, which I'd like to understand why you have one store and why is it in Manly, albeit it's a great swimming surf location in Australia. And then everything else is just via budgysmuggler.com.au. So one part of me thinks, well, they're really hard to buy, or you could argue they're really easy to buy because you just go online. But why have you limited? You can't buy them in department stores. You don't have retail stores around Australia. Tell me your distribution strategy.
Yeah, so I think it went back to those early days when the ability to make money from doing it at scale through department stores or chain stores wasn't really there. So we had to focus on online. Similarly now, we probably could go through those channels now. There would be enough of a margin, but I'm just kind of a bit over it, to be honest. Like everyone reselling your stuff. Like we had a bad experience with one of the retailers where we were selling really well and they got bought by another business, and then I went into the shop and our stuff was kind of hidden out the back, and I'm like, what's going on here? We're one of the top selling items, and they're like, oh no, we only put our home brands in the good position. And so part of it is just wanting to have control over the brand. Like we've had most of the big players trying to get us onto their platforms, and I'm like, why am I going on a platform to give Jeff Bezos more money? Like I'm not interested. If people want it, you can get it. We've only got the one place you can get it, and just try and cut out the number of middlemen or sets of hands it goes on. And we are looking to open more retail stores. And I believe that, I think rents were out of control in Australia for a long time. Like I think the game's up on that. Like the rents were probably inflated at least 50%, particularly in your higher end, like your busy places, you look at the numbers and like I'm self-funded. It's just all from myself. So I don't have like this bazillion dollars to put into a store to pay a landlord overs. And, we trade pretty well. So I'm looking at a lot of the brands that are there and they're not making money.
Interesting. So self-funded, you put everything you make, you put back into the business, debt-free. That's how you like to roll?
Yeah. So it means that our growth probably, we rely a lot on word of mouth. We probably tap out at about 60, 70% growth before we couldn't, fund anymore. But again, I got plenty of time here, touch wood. So
I get the sense, Adam, having just met you, but having known about the brand for many years, and we're going to talk about how you go about marketing in a minute. Maybe I should hold this statement till after that, but I can't. I get the sense that you're happy to roll along. Whilst you might be wanting to build an empire, you're wanting to build an empire slowly, in your own time, debt-free, without the pressures that come with being a wholesaler to a large department store who want to control how you do business, and you're your own person, despite having what I would argue is an iconic Australian brand already, which is well done, buddy. I think it's awesome. Am I right?
Yeah. Like, I'm making enough money to live. I can go on holidays.
Happy days.
I don't need the 100-foot yacht just yet. I'm happy with the Crocs.
Got the Crocs, that's all you need. You walk around and those people probably think you got the 100-foot trimaran.
We want to grow firmly, but don't have too much appetite to, like, if someone gave us a whole lot of money, I'm like, how would we spend it? Like, we have had people sort of offer.
No doubt.
I just feel that people can sense when money's sort of pumped into a brand and it goes beyond the core following of people who understand it. And what's important for us is, most of them are kind of labelled with Budgy Smuggler on the back. So when someone's wearing it, they gotta get it. And if it changes because we've got, billboards everywhere and it's not that kind of people who are wearing it, and get that it's a bit of a laugh and we're not taking ourselves too seriously, I fear that we'll lose the core audience. So for me, it's always been about building that core following. And I guess we talk about sort of loyal growth. And I remember my grandfather, he was a cash register salesman back in the day. And he used to tell me a story about say to me that the best customers are the ones that you've already got. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that in search of, 3 times, 5 times growth. And he used to work for a company called NCR, the National Cash Register Company, American firm. And he worked for them for many years, retired, and then another firm recruited him, and he switched all of Coles and Woolworths to this other company's cash registers, retired again, and then 3 or 4 years later got recruited by NCR again and then transferred them all back to NCR because people had lost sight of the people that were already in the tent. And now every time I go into Coles and Woolworths, their FPOS machines are NCR, and I sort of think of my grandfather and I think, you've got to look after the people you've already got. So we do want to grow, but we're going to get there in our own way.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about a bit more about growth. Your first 5 years of owning the business, you're selling 1,000 units a year. After 5 years, something caught on and you're doing 10,000 units a year. Now you're doing over 100,000 units a year. So can you reflect on some of those kind of inflection points where things kicked off? I mean, what took you from 1,000 to 10,000? What took you from 10,000 to 100,000? Was it a marketing campaign? Was it a design? Was it the fact that you entered the business full time and things exploded?
Around the 10,000 marks when we got our first full-time employee, bloke Brendan Hartman, who's still with us today, is the general manager of it. So that was a big inflection point for us, and we've since added a team since then. But getting that first person full-time, when I didn't have to pick up, be having 2 mobile phones to try and be running the business when people are trying to chase an order that they've lost. So that was a huge. When we had the money to be able to invest in a full-time staff member and build a team, that was a big step forward. I think me coming on board, it did help. I first went, at this stage we had about 3 or 4 full-time staff in Australia, and they were doing a pretty good job of running the business here. So it would have kind of been weird for me to come in and be working with them on a day-to-day basis. So I actually packed up shop and moved to the UK, which was our biggest sort of export market, I guess, at the time, and went to build the business over there. So we've now got a UK-based website as well, which services sort of the UK and Europe, and a team of 3 or 4 there. But one of the unusual benefits, I guess, of that time in the UK, like when I first got there, I was just on my own for large periods of time, and it was back to the early days where you'd have like a couple of days with no orders, and that it's a crushing feeling. Like whenever I've had like those market stall days where you do a stall and it costs you more money to do the stall than you make, or the only people that buy stuff are your family and friends, like that's soul destroying kind of stuff.
How'd you push through?
Combination of maybe naivety and also just learning, what are the right marketplaces to go to. The early days in Australia when there was kind of no orders coming through for multiple days, it is like you do question your sanity. I mean, pretty much everyone at the time of the purchase thought I'd lost the plot a little bit. They were like, "Mate, no one wears these anymore. You've got Buckley's here. Like, have you signed the paperwork? Like, back out of it, literally."
Right.
But I just had a gut feel that in the very long run, I guess, if there's an insight, I sort of knew that wearing Smugglers was better than wearing shorts. And what we need to do is not compete with people who are selling Speedos, but can get the mindset so people who are wearing shorts can transition to just being Smugglers. And if we could do that, we're on course for a successful business.
I reflect on how often I buy a pair of, and dare I say, Speedos. That's going to change, Adam, after this conversation.
Yeah.
I probably buy a pair every 3 or 4 years. Sounds disgusting, doesn't it? I wash them, guys.
I love seeing a well-worn in pair. I think it's...
I do too. They fade on the line and,
Yeah.
It's but that's a long buying cycle. How do you encourage people, or don't you want to, because you don't want to grow too quickly, how do you encourage people to buy a pair? Because, women, like my girlfriend Sarah, she buys a pair of bathers at least once a year, maybe 2, and I'm sure that's a female thing, whereas blokes don't really care. How do you kind of expedite that?
They're very different markets. You're right there. Like girls will buy 3 and 4 sets a year, whereas blokes will buy one every couple of years sort of thing. I don't mind that if they are well worn in. Like, we're trying to bring out stuff that captivates people's imagination, and we've got some people who buy every pair.
I was going to say there'd be a couple of nutters out there, and hello to all you nutters. I love a good nutter who have probably got every design, all 400 designs, and hanging neatly in the wardrobe like something out of Silence of the Lambs.
I'm going to have to hit them up at some point because we're doing a museum of Smugglers, because we don't actually have all the pairs. Now we put them aside, but there's some people who've bought, one bloke buys every pair in 2 different sizes, like a 36 and a 38. But yeah, so I guess we're trying to bring out stuff that people love and that gives them... Did you have Seth Godin on the show?
Yep.
Yeah. So did he tell you about the word otaku?
Nope.
Okay, so it's a Japanese word that means when people, feel something, like say it's a kebab shop, and they'll drive across Tokyo to get to this kebab shop because there's something really cool about it. I guess we're trying to foster and build that, something remarkable about it that makes people feel something and want to buy it. And then we're also encouraging people to wear them, more. And like a pair of Smugglers uses a fifth the plastic of a pair of board shorts. So environmentally, they're a better option. But yeah, if people are only buying one a year, that's okay.
It's okay. You don't want to grow too quickly, mate. I just want you to have a relax. I want you to be able to, what are you on there? The kombucha. I want you to cover your kombucha costs. I want you to be able to...
I'm not that relaxed. Mate,
you sound it. I love it. I'm the one who lives on the bloody, I'm at the beach. I should be the one relaxed. I'm more hyped than you are. Now, here we go. Gloves are off, Adam. Are you ready? We've had this conversation. I've softened you for the blow.
Go for it.
I ocean swim every day.
Yeah.
Of every week, of every month. I have a pair of Speedos on every single day, as do all my swim team, all the old crusty blokes that I swim with.
Beautiful.
You'll find me on Noosa Main Beach every morning. That said, the brand isn't in my face. The only time I see Budgy Smuggler is every now and then a bloke will walk past with the word Budgy Smuggler written on the back of his bathers, and we all look at it and we all laugh and we go, that's awesome, love it, love it, love it. We're all wearing Speedos, and I just wonder why isn't, if there was one brand that should be in my face, given that, with remarketing and Google listening and the ads that pop up are relevant to us these days. I love that. I'm that bloke whose your brand should be in my face all the time, and I should have 3 pairs in my Speedo wardrobe. What am I missing? What are you getting wrong, or is it just an anomaly?
We probably are getting it a bit wrong if we're missing the entire ocean swimming fraternity in Queensland. So, mea culpa. We're probably missing a trick if we're missing you that much. I think maybe one specific reason for the non-retargeting, well, we've pretty much turned it all off now, actually. We might have the age demographic set, sub 40, but, you probably just crept out of it. But the other kind of reason is that we haven't really focused on water, on swimming per se. So,
of course you wouldn't. What do you got, skiing?
No, we do. Seriously, we'd be the number 1 swimwear brand on the ski slopes. If you see every winter, like there's heaps of people skiing in Smugglers, I'm being deadly serious. So
what's that about?
Well, part of the theory's around, one of the first kind of rules of business, I guess, is don't compete. So, everyone, like, you grow up thinking, I'm going to get into a business, I'm going to compete on price or quality or whatever it is. But the best answer is to try and find where there isn't competition and to move towards that space. So, like, there's 2 ways to build a market, right? You can try and take someone else's or create a new one. And so in our case, take pool swimming as an example. That's a super competitive space. So if you go into a pool and try and sell your stuff, companies like Speedo, Arena, Zogs, others, they've got those places on lockdown, and the athletes as well. It's an area that's, tough to compete, or if you want to, you're going to have the gloves off pretty hard. So for us, our main focus is actually around people who completely wouldn't think about smuggling necessarily and might be followers of AFL, rugby league, which are, all big sports, and focusing on that. But I think we can pivot a little bit more back to the water sports. I was speaking with the guys in the UK the other day, and I was like, wow, we actually have never actually even spoken to a pool or a swimming group. So
wow,
maybe it's some low-hanging fruit that for us to have a look at. But it's more around, it also just kind of slightly humorous that we built a swimwear company out of people that don't swim.
I think there is a gap. I mean, again, you have got your Speedos, your Zogs, your Arena brands, and Speedo, we all grew up with Speedo, Zogs and Arena to a lesser extent. But I think there is an opportunity, which I think Budgy Smuggler own, which is personality. It's a smile. And the world needs more smiles. You bought this business because it put a smile on your face. Your mum gave you the dough because she liked the name. You know that when people walk past in a pair of Budgy Smugglers and others look at them, they smile. And I think there's no smile around a Speedo or an Arena or a Zog brand. They're good brands. But I just think, whether you're talking about pool swimmers, ocean swimmers, skiers, big blokes, little blokes, whatever. I just think there is a great opportunity to really drive home that smile. Now, I know you do it. I've looked at your Instagram. There are some smiles on it for sure. And I love this promotion that you run each year called Australia's Most Ordinary Rig. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's a competition to find, literally the most ordinary rig, physique in Australia. So how it started was we were looking at doing like some sort of faux Victoria's Secret style parade just to take the piss out of it. Guys with wings like toilet seats or whatever, just as a bit of a laugh. And then we had these kids come into the office one day, like, awesome bunch of young kids, Western Sydney kids, rat's tails, and they were off to schoolies and they were getting their smugglers. And one of them mentioned to me, we've been getting shredded for schoolies. And I thought, I don't know if that's a good thing. And I guess Instagram was this is 4 or 5 years ago, really emerging at this time. And a lot of the body image concerns that have been around, with women for a long time was starting to creep into the male psyche and the young male psyche. And if these kids are really focused on how they look for schoolies, I'm like, well, we need to do something to counter that. And then the concept of Australia's Most Ordinary Rig came up. So it's like people post pictures online. So the rules are that you have to, look like you're athletic at some point, and that your future sporting career was sidelined by, poor coaching selection or an injury at an early age. You can, still need to be able to run for a taxi. So we don't want people that are kind of completely lost the plot. They need to look like they can still run for a taxi and swing an axe. And people submit their photos online, and then we have like a Miss World style pageant where people have to do a talent.
This is a live event up until COVID, right?
Yeah, so we've had a couple in Australia. We did one in the UK, and then we actually flew the 3 most ordinary rigs in the UK out to Australia, put them in like a mansion, $10 million mansion with its own private beach. They treated them like the superstars that they are, and then had the Ashes of Ordinary. So the two teams competed against each other, and the blokes from the UK actually took it out in narrow victory. So
they lacked tan. The rigs were probably the same, but the UK blokes had lacked tans. They'd just be lily white.
They were quite fluorescent. But this is one of the things I love about smuggling: the people that you meet along the way, and days like that. It's very much kind of, I don't know if community is the word, but you sort of, you see someone else wearing.
You're part of a club.
See someone else wearing them, there's a polite nod, and people kind of know the names of the pairs, and there's just something that comes from that growth through word of mouth that's genuine.
I must say, I do love you do have a lot of different names and a bit of a kind of thing going with. You got Chili Willies, Flamingos as opposed to Flamingos, Rubber Ducks. Yeah, there's a lot of fun names. I'd encourage people to go to the website and have a look, at least, if not buy some. Tell me, you have had Tony Abbott, a past Prime Minister. Was he wearing smugglers or was he just wearing Speedos?
I don't think he's worn smugglers. No, I think maybe a charity pair once, but
he might have done you more harm than good the way he got out there. He had a pretty good rig actually for a Prime Minister. He's a fit bloke, but you had 9 blokes arrested in Malaysia, or you didn't, but they got arrested at the Malaysian Grand Prix, didn't they? All wearing budgie smugglers. Yeah. So I was at a Bucks party in Bali, and I get a phone call saying that I didn't really know what had happened. I had a bit on at the time, and that these guys had been arrested in Malaysia, and I'm getting on a plane for Jetstar overnight flight into Sydney, and turn up at the office, and there was like a few people waiting at the door, which was a bit unusual. So I went in, and then it turned out that they were sort of members of the press, and that this big story at the time had broken, and it was a bit of a, I don't know what the word is, but it was a stressful time, I guess. So it was a bit unlucky, I think, for them. So explain what they did.
So they'd gone to every year they'd go on a holidays, and one person would sort of pick where they're going, what they're wearing, and all that sort of thing. So they'd picked Malaysia Grand Prix. He'd got Malaysian flag Budgy Smugglers done up. So these were the same, similar to what the Malaysian water polo team wears. Anyway, they're there having a good time. On the last lap of the race, Daniel Ricciardo overtakes the other car and wins the Malaysian Grand Prix. So they're like, how good's this? They've stripped into their smugglers, taken their shoes off and started doing shoeies.
What's a shoey?
When it's Danny Ricciardo's signature move where you scull a beer from a shoe. And so they're all there everyone's thinking it's pretty funny, taking pictures and that sort of thing. And someone's responsibility there that day was to uphold the spirit of Malaysia. And they thought that this might have been some sort of coordinated attempt to, I don't know, make Malaysia look like drunk Australians. They got arrested, and they were in jail for 3 nights. It was looking quite quite hair-raising for a while there. But no, there was no disrespect meant or intended or planned. It was a kind of spur of the moment thing.
So you've got the media out the front of your office. You said you freaked out a little bit, understandably, but I assume, hopefully, you quickly realised that this is awesome. You know, it's a little step towards putting Budgies further on the map, and you know, it's great for the brand. It's an Aussie brand that likes to have a bit of a laugh.
Yeah, I mean, the brand awareness aspect of it was good, but you know, and now looking back on it a few years down the track, I'm much more relaxed about the whole situation that unfolded. But boys are all in one piece, so yeah. But no, it did.
Did you ever meet them?
I knew one of them prior, but and I've met one of them since. Uh-huh. So they were not like close friends, but yeah, I did know one of the fellas on it. They were sort of friends of friends. So yeah, I was very relieved when they got back in one piece, and wouldn't recommend it as a brand, as a coordinated brand strategy. Although it was pretty funny. We got a call from, I didn't really realise how the media ran at this point in time, because we kind of like, until I've got back from the UK recently, didn't ever do any interviews or podcasts or that sort of thing. We were just sort of laying low. And I didn't realise how the media operates when these kind of like storms sort of pop up. And so we are an early sponsor of the Batuta Advocate newspaper, and they called them and said, "We've heard that this is a stunt between you and Budgy Smuggler to get the name out there." And the guys at Batuta said, "Yes, that's correct." So then we're getting called by... I didn't know this though. And then I'm getting called by the press saying, "We're printing tomorrow that you and Batuta Advocate have conspired for this press stunt in Malaysia." And we had like 3 staff at the time. So it's like, mate, we didn't even have anyone to do our social media. Like, we have not conspired to do this. And then eventually the Batuta guys, I think the poor journalists would have lost their job if sort of said, "Hey, no, don't print that. We didn't do it." So they did the right thing.
Oh, it's a good story. Well, mate, I hope more of those stories come along, because surely they've got to be good for the brand, and we all need a bit of a laugh in these COVID-infected days. It's a great brand, Adam. Well done, mate, on building something nice and slowly and at your own pace. I have had the idea during our conversation that, you know, I've always wanted a little bit of merchandise for the Small Business Big Marketing podcast. It's 11 years old. Coffee mugs and stress balls don't do it for me. And I'm just wondering, would people wear a pair of Smugglers with my podcast logo on it? I'm going to test it.
Give it a go. We can. What else have we got? We make towels here in Australia, and we've just figured out how to make bucket hats as well. So,
I like a bucket hat. That's very sort of Oasis.
You could have a match Oasis. You could have the band or the desert island.
The band.
You could have the ensemble. You know, just the Smugglers and matching bucket hat, just to bring on the summer.
I might do a poll in the Small Business Big Marketing's Facebook tribe and see what they have to say before I put in an order. But mate, thank you. It's lovely to speak to the owner of what is, I do believe, an iconic Australian brand with huge upside. So I wish you all the best for the coming years, and I'll flick you a photo of myself in a pair of Smugglers, mate. It won't be pretty, but you know, at least I can say I've come across from Speedo.
Appreciate the switch, and yeah, we'd love to do the custom stuff for you too. Thanks for having us on.
What a good fellow, and a great brand, by the way. What do you reckon? Small Business Big Marketing, Budgy Smugglers and a bucket hat? Are you in? I hope so. I'd love that. I'd love to be receiving photos of you guys around the world wearing a pair of SBBM Smugglers. I might do a future show in one. Live stream it. All right. Here's my top 3 attention grabbers from that chat with Chief Smuggler Adam Linforth. Attention grabber number 1. I love Adam's approach to growing slowly, and not just slowly, but debt-free and manufacturing in Australia. Good stuff right there. Attention grabber number 2. I thought it was interesting that he didn't go full-time in the business until 10 years after buying it. You know, every successful business owner I speak to, the minute they 100% laser focus on their idea, that's when the business takes off. And attention grabber number 3, I love Adam's Australia's Most Ordinary Rig competition. It's a lot of fun, put a big smile on my face, and a great way to build free publicity. Now, that said, I'd love to see Adam get a bit clearer on what his brand stands for and represents. The brand name itself is full of personality, and so are some of his Instagram posts, but I just don't see that same smile carrying across into his website. I'm also not 100% convinced that a women's and kids range is the right thing to offer. You know, I double down on the fact that it's a dedicated range of men's swimwear. You know the old saying, be known for one thing well? Yeah, I could be wrong, but that's just my feeling. I'd also have a serious look at his remarketing campaign. As someone like me should have the Budgy Smuggler brand appearing in my feed every day, given how much I swim and, you know, I'm waking on the Speedos every day. Sorry to put that vision in your mind, but, you know, just bear with me. Anyway, that's what I reckon. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. So give me a buzz on 0480 015 150. Leave your business name or your website address. Get a bit of free publicity if I play it on a future episode.
Come on down. It's Timbo's Monster Prize Draw.
Yes, indeedly doodly. It's time to reward another motivated listener for taking some serious marketing action. And today's winner is coffee connoisseur Dinesh Nair of followthebblackherd.com. Dinesh writes, hey Timbo, wow, what a journey that I have travelled with your podcast over the last year. I discovered you by another business owner, Sam the Barber in Currumbin. He grabbed my phone and subscribed to your podcast for me. Oh, good on you, Sam. I love that. Over the last 7 years, I had a very successful cafe on the Gold Coast and built it to 3 sites. However, here we go. Not all goes according to plan, and I found myself with no shop front and owing $500,000. Huge blow to myself, my family, and my staff. Anyway, 1 year later, and I find myself back at the foot of the mountain starting up again. Oh, that is impressive, inspiring stuff. This time stronger, smarter, and more focused. So far, I've joined Cham Tang's online marketing with... from the top, 3, 2, 1. So far, I've joined Cham Tang's online marketing course, which I'm halfway through. Cham is a past guest of this show. He's awesome, bit of a Facebook expert. I've started a business module to tackle an industry worth $5.5 billion in Australia. Go for it, Dinesh. I love that. I've listened to so many guest stories from different industries and have picked up little tips along the way, like packaging, customer service, CRM tools, standing out in front of your competition, becoming an expert in your field. The list goes on. Also, just want to say to your listeners, if you are in a difficult position, then reach out and seek help, as there are others that can help you. You're not alone. That's great advice, Dinesh. Fully support that. Once again, thanks for your podcast, Timbo. It's changed my life. Let the adventure begin. Dinesh Nair, followthebblackherd.com. Dinesh, you have won a full range of Liars non-alcoholic spirits, vouchers to use at Sendall and Tradies. You get promotion on this show, a backlink in the show notes. Everyone else, email me, tim@timreid, reid.com.au. Share one idea that's working for you and what impact it's had on your business. If I read it out on air, you win. Hey, if you'd like to keep the conversation going, be sure to join the Small Business Big Marketing Tribe on Facebook. We currently have around 700 members and they're sharing ideas and pushing each other to be better business owners every day. Next week, we catch up with New York-based Mike Grande of Rock Out Loud. Now, he's the founder of a new music teaching platform that has saved the businesses of thousands of music teachers globally as this pandemic stopped any face-to-face teaching. It's a great story. If you've got something to tell me, then be sure to give me a buzz, 0480 015 150. Put it in your phone under Timbo or Marketing Gold or anything, I don't mind. And please let other business owners know about the show. The more the better, I reckon. What do you reckon? It's presented by me, Timbo Reid. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate the time you give me. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.